time to get regional, and let's head out to the West Coast, baby. And it's West Coast Take Two in Hollywood and Seattle for these three remaining West Coast teams, because Take One in the Big Ten wasn't maybe their best effort. USC, UCLA, and Washington combined for a 17-19 record in the regular season last year. So all of these teams are certainly looking to take a step up to climb closer to what Oregon did in year number one within the Big Ten Conference. We are going to start with the Cardinal and Gold. We are going to fight on with USC to certainly start this one off. This has to be an improvement for USC. But it's got to be for Lincoln Riley's sake. If he wants, I know there's a lot of money in his buyout, but if he wants to keep his job and they want to be able to keep and be able to maintain that great 2026 recruiting class, creating a bridge this season to future success is vitally important. The transfer portal was tough on the Trojans. They lost 26 players. They had the 16th best portal class in the conference. Guys like Deuce Robinson, Quentin Joyner, Emmanuel Pranon, Kyron Hudson, Zach Branch are all gone from this USC team this season. So on offense, I think here's where I want to start. You might think, hey, Lincoln Riley team, you're going to start with quarterback. Well, no, not with this one. I want to start with an area where Lincoln Riley, he wanted to give it the stiff arm. It seemed like all year long, and that was the run game. But this is a team that succeeded most last season when they ran the football effectively. Woody Marks had over 1,100 yards and 13 touchdowns last season. He was the first 1,000-yard rusher for the Trojans since 2017, when Ronald Jones was able to do that. I already mentioned Quentin Joyner transferred out of this program. He was that backup running back. He's over to Texas Tech. So now you have pretty much most of your significant rushing production is gone. How do you revitalize this room? Eli Sanders transfers in from New Mexico. He rushed for over 1,000 yards and 15 scores last season. He's kind of the lightning. The thunder is going to be Brian Jackson. He showed what he can do during the bowl game. So that's kind of what you're working with the run game. I do not believe that it is as good. This is a running back room and a run game I'd feel a lot better with if Quentin Joyner would have remained certainly in Los Angeles. But for that in the run game, the passing attack has the potential to be really, really good. But folks, Jaden Mayava has got to protect the football. Got to protect the football. He played the last 3 games of the year last year after taking over for Miller Moss. He played pretty well to start against Nebraska, but the last 2 games hit or miss. 7 scores, 5 interceptions. Of course, the 2 pick sixes against Notre Dame. That cost him that potential to have that upset and maybe knock the Irish out of the college football playoff at that point. There wasn't a ton of solid Jaden Mayava is our guy like there was with Miller Moss last year. Husan Longstreet, I think, is floating out there. And it would not surprise me to see the great 5-star freshman maybe take over at some point this season. I would anticipate it might not be until later in the season, but I am certainly up to being surprised because I think he is certainly the future of the program at USC right there, no doubt. And we know Lincoln Riley is that quarterback guy. USC might have the best wide receiver tandem in the country. Okay, that's the Big Ten, if not all of college football. Okay, Pro Football Focus ranked Mekhi Lemon as their number 1 wide receiver in the 2026 draft. 764 yards and 3 scores last year. Jacoby Lane, the tall, athletic receiver, 525 yards and 12 scores. Last year at times, it seemed like, there's a game. Okay, Deuce Robinson is having his game. Okay, Mekhi Lemon, Jacoby Lane is having their game, and Kyron Hudson is maybe having a game. There wasn't really a consistent number 1 guy. But I think now you have that in your 1-2 option with Lemon and Lane at the top. And those 2 guys are going to be very difficult to defend, certainly for defenses this next season. Now, the depth beyond that is not the best in the world. They went to the portal. They got Prince Strayson. Hope I pronounced that right. He transfers from Boise State. 25 catches, 304 yards, and a score last year. Jay Fair is back. Xavier Jordan is someone to keep an eye out for. Lake McCree has kind of been banged up over there at tight end, so there's some questions with him right now. Joey Olson is a name to keep an eye on, a redshirt freshman at that position as well. Last year, I think the offensive line, it wasn't great, certainly. I think it was good in the run game. I think it maybe struggled a little bit more in pass protection. Miller Moss took a lot of hits as the season kind of wind down a little bit. They lose 3 starters, Jonah Monheim, Mason Murphy, Emmanuel Pranon. And you look at Pranon, he transfers up to Oregon, Mason Murphy to Auburn. Like, these guys aren't downgrading. Right? They're going to Big Ten programs. They're going to SEC programs. Monheim, right, is going on to the next level. So they're trying to replace that. DJ Wingfield transfers over from Purdue, but there are some questions with his eligibility. He might not be able to go. John Ray Reed transfers from Syracuse. Now, both of those are top 10 interior offensive line guys, but like we said, the eligibility, I think, is a big question. Offensive line-wise, they need Elijah Page to make a big jump this season over there at left tackle. Now, he's a highly recruited 4-star type of kid. You throw him in as a freshman, there might be some lumps, and there was, but he needs to play well, especially if they want to keep these quarterbacks upright this season. I'm not sure about the run game. I think the running back room has maybe taken a little bit of a step down. Offensive line, I'm not sure if it's made any really significant improvements as well. You look to the defensive side of the ball, and I'm a lot more optimistic in the trenches on the defensive side of the ball for USC. This group took a step up last year on defense because there was no other direction, certainly, to go. So, that defensive line, Cam Fountain and Anthony Lucas are back at defensive end. That's a really good pairing. That's a really good pairing, in my opinion. They got a lot bigger with transfers on the interior at nose tackle. How about Keyshawn Silver, a former 5-star? He was transfers over from Kentucky, 6'4", 331 in the middle. Also, Jamal Jarrett from the SEC. How about 6'5", 350? So they got that Big Ten beef that we all know you need in the middle of these defensive line. Devin Tompkins started some game in the interior last year as well. Braylon Shelby at defensive end at 3 sacks. He adds some depth there. Jakeem Stewart, he's a 5-star freak, 6'5", 290. He can play outside. He can play inside. I think he's going to work his way on the football field, no doubt, this season. Eric Gentry needs to pick up where he left off last season due to injury because the linebacker room not loaded with talent. You lose Easton Mascarenas-Arnold off of this defense. He was one of their leading tacklers and one of their leading guys at linebacker. Mason Cobb is another one. Both those guys combined for 107 tackles and 8 tackles for loss last year. So like Gentry and Anthony Lucas both got hurt, I think, kind of in the middle of the year. And not having those guys, I think, really hurt USC. So keeping those guys healthy is going to be huge. The secondary is interesting because I love Kamari Ramsey. He represented USC at Big Ten Media Days, and he's over there at safety. I mean, the Big Ten is loaded at safety, but he's really good, certainly. And they got some good transfers to be able to kind of supplement what they lost in that back part of that group. Only Ramsey is coming back as a starter. DJ Harvey from San Jose State. He was the number 15 corner in the portal. I mean, he's all over the field. 58 tackles, 7 TFLs, 2 sacks, 10 PBUs, 4 interceptions. Bishop Fitzgerald from the Power 4 at NC State, number 11 safety in the portal. Same kind of deal. 55 tackles, 7 TFLs, 8 PBUs, 3 picks. All ACC honorable mention. Kennedy Urlacher maybe fitting into that nickel spot coming over from Notre Dame as well. So the strength of USC on the defensive side of the ball is going to be that defensive line. So they need to be able to eat. They need that dog work to really kick into gear this year. I think for the defense to continue to improve this season offensively, this is a team that they need to light it up. They need their offensive line to do just good enough so that their quarterback, whoever it may be, can deal the pill, the lemon and lane, and they can go off certainly this season. Let's talk about that other team in Los Angeles, that being, and that's maybe disrespectful, but let's talk about the UCLA Bruins right now. What I love about UCLA is Deshaun Foster just kept this team fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting last season. They could have rolled over and died during that stretch. I mean, they have LSU during that, Penn State, Oregon during that stretch, but they got big wins against Nebraska, big wins against Iowa a little bit later in the season. Eric Bieniemy is out as the offensive coordinator. In is Tino Sinceri as their new OC. You talk about their defense, it was 4th against the run, 2nd to last against the pass, and there are a lot of departures on defense. A lot of transfer portal movement. They had the 2nd most movement in the Big Ten in the portal, but they had the 5th ranked class in the portal. 34 guys out and 30 guys in to beautiful Westwood. Now, let's start with offense. Any notable thing to talk about? Quarterback, maybe, for example, for UCLA? You thought you had Joey Aguilar coming over from App State, and he was going to be your quarterback, and then the old switcheroo, in comes Nico Iamaleava, and there is a lot of attention, certainly, on him. Now, he's an upgrade, certainly, from where Ethan Garbers was last season. Completed 64% of his passes, over 2,600 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 5 picks. Now, he was good. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Now, was he great? Was he mind-blowing? Was he elite? I would not put him into that category. But still, he quarterbacked a team that made their way to the college football playoff. Now, run game and defense maybe has something to do with that, with the Volunteers certainly as well. I'm looking forward to the combination of Nico and Tino, and possibly Rico. But that Tino Sinceri, as I mentioned, coming over to be their offensive coordinator from Indiana. He's got a proven track record, specifically with quarterbacks, specifically with passing offenses that have been successful. So, I know there's that whole situation was crazy during the spring, but there's going to be a lot of eyes on UCLA. There's going to be a lot more attention on UCLA now than there would have been if Joey Aguilar would have been the quarterback. And I think that they've got a schedule early on in the season that could really see them really notching up some wins and building some confidence. They better hope that Nico is better than Joey Aguilar. Okay, because if they let Joey Aguilar walk, Nico, and it doesn't really maybe pan out, and Joey lights it up at Tennessee, that's not the best look, I think, for this UCLA team right now. I think there's potential for Nico to have a really good season because of also what who he's throwing to. Now, you do lose J. Michael Sturdivant, Logan Loya. Maliki Matavao was the tight end. He was their leading receiver last year, actually, 506 yards and 2 scores. Caden Robinson is a transfer. Now, he thought he was going to be playing with his buddy Joey coming over from App State. Recently filed a lawsuit against the NCAA to play this season. He combined, I should say, for over 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns the past 2 seasons. So if they can get him eligible, that will give a big-time boost to this wide receiver room. Quasi Gilmer returns after 345 yards and 2 scores as a freshman. Titus Mokiawa Atamalala, I think I got that one right. 294 yards and a touchdown last season. Rico Flores was injured last season. He played just 4 games. He could be back in maybe September to October or something like that. Like, he's a former 4-star, top 150 guy, started his career over at Notre Dame. And then they bring in guys like a transfer, Mikey Matthews from Cal, who had over 270 yards and a score last year. Jaden Wilson from Arkansas. So, it's kind of the formula that they built at Indiana, where it's like, okay, let's spread the field with a lot of options. Let's have a really good quarterback that can distribute the ball to all of these guys, and let's achieve our offensive success certainly that way. Now, the run game, not a strength last year for UCLA, and that's putting it kindly. They were the worst rushing offense in the Big Ten. They lose TJ Harden. They bring in 2 transfers, Javion Thomas and Anthony Woods. I mean, you look at Thomas last year, he led Cal in rushing, 7 touchdowns. Woods didn't play at Utah in 24, but he did really good at the FCS level in 2023 when he was 5th in the FCS in rushing that year. Jalen Berger is also back in this room, so there's some depth, but I think it's going to be more of a complement to the pass game really than anything. Offensive line struggled to start the season, maybe got a little bit better as this year went on last year. They returned 2 starters, Sam Yoon at center, Garrett DiGiorgio over there at right tackle. They bring in a handful of transfers over there. They got to be good. Got to give Nico time to be able to throw the football down the field against some of these Big Ten defensive lines. Let's head over to the defensive side of the football. This is an entirely new group. They had some good players on this team that are going to be playing on NFL rosters this season, like specifically in the secondary. They have 10 transfers alone coming in the secondary. I think that just goes to show you like the type of guys that they lost and the amount of guys that they lost and what they need to bring in, like KJ Wallace and Brian Addison, are out of that group. I mean, Carson Schlesinger in the middle, led the Big Ten in tackles, first team All-American, 33rd overall pick of the Cleveland Browns. Femi Oladejo was a 2nd-round pick of the Tennessee Titans. Like, man, it's a defense that's losing a lot, and it's going to look brand new. Jalen Woods is the only returning player that had decent time, like in the linebacker group, 12 games, 22 tackles last year, but they bring in Isaiah Chisholm from Oregon State. He had 75 tackles last year. I think they're expecting him to play at a high level this year. Uncertainty, a lot of uncertainty, I think, back there in the secondary. Keep an eye on like Andre Jordan from Oregon State, Roderick Pleasant from Oregon, a former 4-star top 100 type of player. They're kind of still figuring out what they want to do with him. Key Lawrence was a safety from Ole Miss, had a couple of good years at Oklahoma, over 100 tackles and 3 interceptions in 2 years combined over there. So a lot of uncertainty on the defensive side of the ball, but I think they just kind of need to hang around with what this offense and how explosive it could be with Nico at quarterback. The back half of their schedule is more difficult, but I mean, they could be 4-0 going into that Penn State game at the Rose Bowl, and there could be a whole lot of cameras, whole lot of lights, whole lot of attention coming to this program, which I think is a really good thing for Deshaun Foster and the Bruins right now. Let's move over to the last team on the West Coast, that being up in Seattle. Let's talk about the Washington Huskies. A little bit of a roller coaster ride, certainly it was last season. Now, they lost both of their coordinators because, family. The offensive coordinator was Brennan Carroll. Okay, so he joins his dad, Pete Carroll, with the Raiders. Steve Belichick was the defensive coordinator last year. Oh, you might have heard Bill Belichick became the head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels. Jimmy Doherty will take over as the offensive coordinator. He'd been with Jed Fish since he was at Arizona, quarterback coach, passing game coordinator, that kind of guy as well. So there's some familiarity there. Ryan Walters, former Purdue head coach, comes in as the defensive coordinator for the Huskies. So, I mean, are we going to get more of like Illinois 2022 when he was the DC there? They fell flat on their face at Purdue. Is it going to be somewhere in the middle? We'll talk about that a little bit later. The strength of this team is the offensive skill positions. Damon Williams at quarterback. You've got, you look at him, a lot of people are pegging him as like this exciting breakout type of player, and I agree with them. Last year when he got on the field, and Will Rogers, of course, started the season, completed 78% of his passes, 944 yards, 8 touchdowns to 1 interception. Okay, so, his mobility allows him to get outside the pocket, make plays with his legs, and he showed, especially during that bowl game, what he can do engineering a comeback to really get his team back into the football game. I'm excited to see what Damon can do this season. I think he's going to be certainly one of the better quarterbacks, certainly in the top half of the Big Ten when it comes to signal callers this season. Jonah Coleman returns off a really good season, over 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns in the run game. Denzel Boston, they lose Giles Jackson at wide receiver, but Denzel Boston last year, 834 yards and 9 scores. They get Amari Evans from Penn State out of the portal, 21 catches, 415 yards, and 5 touchdowns at Penn State. Now, the depth at wide receiver beyond those two guys maybe starts to bring up some question marks. Unproven guys, Kevin Green, Rashid Williams, and others need to really step up to provide that depth to have more weapons instead of just those two main guys at the top that the defense could possibly lock into. Last year, the offensive line, it was an issue, certainly to say the least. And they're looking for 2 senior transfer portal additions to really help that out. Carver Willis transfers over from K-State. Garen Hatchett transfers back to Washington from Oklahoma. Now, Willis started 11 games last season, all Big 12 honorable mention in 2023. Hatchett played in the first 8 games in the 2023 season, the year they won the Joe Moore Award, before an injury kind of held him back as well. So Washington offensively needs to have the offensive line be better. That is a must. If that doesn't happen, you're going to end up with, I think, a lot of the same stuff that you did last year. Number 2, Damon Williams has to give you a level up the ladder in terms of quarterback play, and you need both of those aforementioned receivers to certainly step up and be playmakers on the outside. I'm excited about what the offense can do. Let's head to the defensive side of the ball. Now, Ryan Walters, high highs at Illinois, low lows when he was the head coach at Purdue. Where is he going to be? To me, I think he's going to maybe land somewhere in the middle. All he really needs to put out there defensively is be like, hey, we got really good weapons on the offensive side of the ball. Get us some stops every now and then, right? Be like middle of the road for us, and I think that will really get us in a great position where we can maybe make some plays and maybe hang on in maybe a 38-35 game or a 31-28 game or something like that, possibly down the road as well. Now, Washington loses their top 2 tacklers from last season. Carson Bruner, 104 tackles. Alfonso Tupatala, 81 tackles and 3.5 sacks. But I kind of still feel good about what they have in the middle at linebacker. Tariq El-Ukta transfers in from Washington State, 76 tackles last season. Zaire Alexander transfers in from UCF. He had 68 tackles and 6 tackles for loss a year ago. Russell Davis, Zach Durfee, key players, I think, that need to come off the edge to be able to provide a pass rush to help out the rest of this defense, I think is truly, truly important for them. There's no doubt about that. Both of those guys off the edge have shown flashes within their career. So I think there's certainly something to work with at this level of the defense. It's a largely unproven defensive line with Javon Parker coming off of an injury, played 4 games. Sioti Pepa coming in from Utah, had a great freshman season, maybe not as productive the last 2 years over there as well. They've got the most college football experience really comes from some transfers. Ontario Thompson and Tetayaye Uyunglele, hope I got that right, who played a good amount at Western Michigan and Arizona, respectively, right there. Secondary is probably, one of the better groups. Okay, they lose Thaddeus Dixon in the portal to North Carolina, but they grab the top corner in the portal in Takaria Davis from Arizona. Yet another Wildcat coming over to rejoin Jedd Fisch. Davis was a second-team All-Big 12 player last season and a semifinalist for the Thorpe Award. Alex McLaughlin is an FCS transfer from Northern Arizona that I think they expect to fill in at safety. He was a first-team All-Big Sky and an All-American at that type of level. So all of that being considered, I truly believe that this is a defense that just needs to hang on. Their offense needs to be very explosive this season, make a lot of plays, and this could be, the schedule is kind of pretty decent. It's not the easiest, it's not the hardest in the world, but I think that this is a team that they have a clear formula of what they need to do to be successful in year 2 under Jedd Fisch.